we could talk about it being a low budget.
Yeah.
Because was I'm the one where the grip truck or the lighting truck broke and we had to tow it?
That's how you knew when the company was moving.
Right.
Yes.
That was on Big Time?
That was on Big
Right,
Time.
okay, so that's a low budget.
You tow it every time you moved it?
Well, it broke.
It broke.
And we didn't have time, you have to transfer.
Well, wait, don't tell the story yet.
Our grip or lighting truck, or maybe it was both, broke down during the filming, and we didn't have time to offload it. You'd have to take everything out of the truck, put it into another truck that worked. So we kept it in the broken truck, and when we had to move locations, we just bought one of those big tow trucks would show up and would tow it, jack it up and tow it to the next location, plunk it down somewhere, and we worked out of it. So we got to know when we were moving locations when this huge tow truck would show up.
So my question is, would you rather do this as a conversation, or do you just want to yak? I'd rather you just talk.
I'd rather yak, but then ask me a question. In other words, it
Right.
seems to me that for cutting purposes, it's not very interesting to cut back to you.
No, you don't
either
want to cut
going,
to me. No.
or asking the question. I mean,
Exactly.
I'm not even sure you want to hear the question.
Exactly.
But I think it would help me if you would ask me
Okay,
questions
fine.
and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But I think for your purposes, if I can just talk.
I agree.
So I need to act large. Is that? Well, somehow we got the message, and I'm sure it came from Jan, that this was a film that we were primarily making for ourselves. And once you remove that screen of trying to please someone else, which means not so much that other person is wrong, but you're trying to figure out what they want, so you're not really in touch with yourself. You can't do both at the same time. Everyone felt liberated, and I think everyone sort of was able to bring the best of themselves out. I mean, it was our film. It was Jan's film, but Jan made us feel like it was our film. So we could just open our mind up and think, well, what would be an interesting way of looking at this?
So if you can think a little bit about sort of where you were coming from and where you went.
It may sound sort of boring and self-serving.
But that's okay.
If
it's self-serving, we'll guard you from that. Don't worry.
Both boring and self-serving.
Oh well, then.
But I'll say it
we
anyway,
won't use
and
it
then
at
you
all.
can take it out. So
Okay.
You
I
ready?
think you should just go for it. Yeah.
You ready? I had a lot of experience in documentaries. I'd started in documentaries. I'd shot handheld. I got off on jobs where you'd take the tripod with you, but you didn't take it out of the case for a week. So I was very comfortable shooting handheld. I liked handheld. I liked the feeling of the camera being part of me and part of my body, and that the motion, the physical motion that my body provided was the motion that the camera registered. So there's a fair amount of handheld in it, and there's the willingness to shoot handheld, being comfortable with handheld, and thinking like a handheld cameraman provides. And that documentaries in general provide, because you're always looking at what's going on. You're not coming just off of a script of what's supposed to be happening. You're looking at what's actually happening. And in a documentary, you're working in a world where the film is going on all around you. It's not just in the scene that's in front of you. In a fictional film, the scene is in front of you, where the actors are and the set is and where the lighting is. And if you go this way or this way, you're looking at the crew and the back of the stage. And so you tend to just think that direction. But in a documentary, the film is all around you. And sometimes the most important thing isn't the one that you think it is in front of you. The most important thing is happening over there. And so you get used to looking that way, and used to being open to the idea that there's an opportunity in every direction. The characters were given certain freedom in blocking, and then the camera had certain freedom, and our approach it's just the nature of Jan and myself, and I think the other key makers in the film was sort of intuitive. We were more comfortable with that. We liked that. So that's what we did. Ultimately, we began to see that we had a style of camera movement which when we looked at what we were choosing, it turned out that we decided that when the characters were moving, when there was action in the frame through the characters or a vehicle or something, then the camera didn't move particularly. Whenever the characters became static, then the camera moved. And it has a bit of an attitude, not necessarily a clear attitude, but it seems to have some sort of attitude, and that again adds to the density of the visual information you're getting and keeps you involved. I think, you know, I think the best creative work is done sort of semi-consciously, where you're not exactly clear why you're doing something or even exactly what you're doing at the time. And for one reason or another, primarily due to Jan, the director, the film became a situation where for all of us there was opportunities to function in this way. And for me as the cinematographer, it meant that I had a freedom to move the camera and place the camera without it having been storyboarded, without having some sort of rigid formula of wide shots and medium shots and close-ups. And certainly wasn't my decision alone by any means, and sometimes it wasn't my decision at all. But the decisions were based sort of on what seemed to be, what the feeling seemed to be for that scene and what might be interesting to do. And at the very best, it was decisions that were made as if the camera had its own character and the camera chose to take a certain position or move in a certain way, and we were just there to do the bidding of the camera. But when we'd be discussing a scene and we'd be talking about the coverage and where we wanted the camera to move and what the cuts would be, Jan would do something that I would do, which I'd close my eyes and I'd just play the movie. Even though we hadn't shot it yet, I'd just play. Well, what would happen if the camera went here and here and here? And it's pretty simple if you play it and then you look at it, you know if it's right or wrong or if you want to do it. And Jan would do the same thing. You know, he'd just close his eyes and there'd be a pause and I know the film was running and then he'd go, well, maybe that's not, maybe we should put it over here. And for a cinematographer to work with a director who has that visual fluency, it can only mean that the cinematography is going to look that much better. One of the characters is a filmmaker, and the woman is an actress and a model. So it was natural that there would be, for filmmaking technique and process to be part of the content. And so we took advantage of that to have little commercials in the film that they serve sort of the same role that a dream sequence might have served in a Bergman film. They were part of the film, but they came at the film from a different angle. It allowed us to make a different type of film at the same time we were making one film, a narrative film with three characters. We could make a different film at the same time, which I think provides a little bit more energy, both for us creatively in making the film, but also in watching the film. Again, it's a density of information, and whenever you have a hybrid of some sort, it creates a little bit more energy than just the components, the pieces. The whole is a little bit more exciting. I'm not sure that that's what we intended to do, but I think that's what we did. I had recently seen a movie with John Lennon and Yoko that featured a lot of home movies that were shot in Super 8. And it was shot in a type of Super 8 that was called, what Polaroid had created, called Polavision. And I saw this movie in a movie theater, you know, blown up on a 35mm print, and the Polavision had enormous grain in it because it was Super 8, but it was also very crisp. It didn't have that kind of fuzzy, muddy look that Super 8 sometimes has. It just had crisp, gigantic balls of grain, and it also had lots of scratches and streaks, and I thought it was very mysterious. The reason that we used different film stocks, different film gauges, 8mm, the bulk of the film was shot in 35, but we shot in 8mm, and we also shot in Polavision 8mm, and we shot in black and white and color 8mm to give texture to film. In the past, you might go to black and white to show a dream sequence or a flashback or something, or you might use Super 8 for the same reason. That you could just go from one look to another look without any intellectual or storytelling logic, shifting between black and white, color, Super 8, 35. The way we moved the camera was are attempts to always keep you visually intrigued so that the image, you weren't looking at the image so long that you stopped looking at it. My ideas don't come much from the script, really. They don't really start to appear until I get to a location, and then it just starts to bubble up from the surroundings and from the visuals that are in front of me. It's really fun to make film, and it's fun to look through the camera and take the picture, and of course if you've taken the picture, you tend to think it's pretty good because it's yours. So if you take the picture and you don't find it interesting, the audience is going to find it really boring. So I try to do anything I can to avoid taking a picture that I find boring at the moment I'm taking it. I'd most like to be as an experimental filmmaker. And a few times in my career, for one reason or another, I got to function sort of in that role, and Big Time was certainly one of them.